Alright, guys. So, I'm going to be reviewing Red Sonja and Vampirella meet Betty and Veronica. We got a Dynamite Archie crossover. And honestly, I think this might be the last Archie comic crossover that they've done in a while. They haven't really done... Archie Comics hasn't really done a crossover with anyone since this book. I don't know why that is. I don't know what that's about. But actually... before we get into the actual nitty-gritty of the comic, I actually want to talk about Dynamite itself, particularly how they've been rolling out their trades, because they've been really slow as of late. This is volume 1 of a 12, because this initially got 6 issues, and then it got, apparently it got bumped up to 12 issues. So there's still half a comic, and that comic has been delayed that trade has been delayed for over a year. And I think it's going on 2 years now. But yeah, they have been accepted. Like, that's the other reason why I got the Reanimator versus Army of Darkness crossover in single issues, because the trade just kept getting pushed back more and more. And I don't know if that's like a publisher thing or a printer thing, but yeah, the trades, especially when it comes to Dynamite, have been super unreliable. And I'm not talking just their crossovers, I'm talking like a lot of their comics as of late has been kind of unreliable. Again, I don't know if that's the company's fault or the fault of someone else in the printing or editorial, but yeah, it's getting ridiculous, because I would like to complete this. Autofocus off a bit, but yeah, I would prefer to complete this and have it done. That'd just be swell. That would be mighty swell to finally have that done. It would be great. But yeah. So, aside from that, what is Vampirella and Red Sonja and Vampirella meet Betty and Veronica? Well, this comic basically involves Red Sonja and Vampirella coming to Riverdale in order to find a series of vampire cultists who have been killing and draining people of blood. Now, they don't really go into why or how Vampirella got Red Sonja out of her timeline and brought her here. They were just kind of hand-wavy it. Although I do like the bit of continuity here, where essentially Red Sonja, when Betty and Veronica meet them, they're like, so how do you guys know each other? And they actually reference another crossover that was treated as a Dynamite event called Swords of Sorrow, which was a big, like, crossover event with all the female characters throughout Dynamite. It was actually really cool. Gail Simone wrote it. So I kind of liked that they actually referenced that, yeah, Red Sonja and Vampirella have met in a lot of crossovers. They've met in a lot of comics together. So they've met one another a lot in these comics, and they have pretended, like, so I kind of like that there's a bit of continuity, because most of the comics, it's like, yeah, these guys have met so many times, but every time they meet, it's like the first time. So it's kind of neat about that. Now, this is written by Amy Chu and artwork by... Hang on, I'm going to butcher this name. I butcher every fucking name. Maria Laura Sanapo. Hope I'm saying that name right. But yeah, so there's also other additional artists, but that's the main one. Amy Chu with Alexander Chang taking over for issue 5. But yeah, so this comic, like I said, it's the two of them going out and finding a cult that is that they believe is called the Cult of Chaos and run by the Mad God. Well, that is a weird thing, because it goes in a total different direction in the last 2 issues of this arc. Keep in mind, there is a totally second volume to this, which I don't know if we'll ever get, but whatever. I enjoy, like, the chemistry between the 4 characters. It's really neat to see basically a 3-way crossover between these. I also like the joke in here. There's a joke in here where Archie shows up as like, hi Betty, hi Veronica, and Betty's like, and Sonja's like, who's that? And she's like, oh, that's our friend Archie. Don't worry, this is our story. He's not important. So yeah, while Archie's in here, this is an Archie comic, this isn't about, like, Archie is a cameo character at best. At least in the the Ivy and the Harley and Ivy one, that one actually features Archie as a main character, even with Betty and Veronica as the main characters. Sanapo's artwork, going to them real quick, is really cool. It's very detailed. But the problem is that a lot of the characters look alike. There is a lot of... And I know, like, every artist is guilty of making their characters look alike, but here it's really bad. Like, I got confused several times because Veronica and Vampirella look exactly the same in height and costume, in clothing-wise, and hairstyle. So several times where I'm like, is that Veronica or is that Vampirella? I can't tell. Even then, like, there's points where I forget Red Sonja isn't Cheryl. So that was... the artwork, while good, is really confusing. Also, this comic moves really fast. For 6 issues, this comic moves at a redonkulous speed that's kind of unnecessary. Like, it really just goes bang, 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 bang. And I'm like, slow down. I know, like, I sometimes say that some comics for 6 issues do either too much or too little. This one does too much way too fast. Like, and this comic also just jumps around. Really, like, some conflicts, like Vampirella gets thrown in prison for because she was drinking blood at a blood bank, and now she's believed to be the killer. But then she gets immediately bailed out. Yeah. It's like that was meant to be a subplot, but then they thought they had 6 issues, and it was like, oh no, we've increased it to 12 issues. You can do more. So Amy Chu was like, okay, cool. There's also something in here that kind of bothered me, where it turned out that some of the opposition they face is an African American vampire and a Pakistani, Middle Eastern American vampire, and that kind of like most of the villain vampires are of a different race than the 4 white female characters, and I'm like, that's weird. I don't think that was intentional, but that's just I don't think that was intentional by Amy Chu. But also at the same time, I found that I was like, if this was a lesser writer, this would be a little problematic. I'm just going to chalk it up to this was probably not thought of. But yeah, all in all, it's decent. There are some good jokes. There's actually a few good jokes. Like I said, the Archie one was funny, and it's ridiculous. Like, it's completely ridiculous. It's almost like fan fiction level. But I can't really fully grade this comic because there's still a second volume that hasn't come out yet. So I can't. It leaves on a cliffhanger, and I know there's some been crossovers out there that have ended on cliffhangers, but I'm like, Jesus, guys, come on. Like, put out the trade already. It's been over a year since this one. But yeah. So, do I recommend Vampirella and Red Sonja and Vampirella meet Betty and Veronica? Kinda, but I mean, you can read it, but you'll be left on a cliffhanger, and God knows when they're gonna put out the next volume. It's a decent book. It's a decent enough book. I think the strongest point of this comic is Betty and Veronica and how well they play off of Red Sonja and Vampirella, and I think that's the strongest point of this crossover. And it actually gives one of my big things with crossovers is always give equal amount of screen time to all parties, and I think it does that. I really do think it does that. But for the most part, yeah, this comic was just kind of leaves on it. As soon as I get this, whenever I get the second volume, maybe I'll appreciate this more. But for right now, it's artwork's fine, even if the characters a lot of the characters look the same. But yeah. Anyway, so there you go, guys. That is pretty much my review for that comic. But you guys tell me in the comments below if you've read that crossover. Let me know in the comments below. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.